Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 25 mini-series with the Seattle Mariners. And we are in the closing stages of the 2024 to 2025 offseason. Been a very eventful offseason for our Seattle Mariners so far. We wanted to improve our offense, and we've signed two of the top players on the market for a total of over $500 million. Juan Soto and Gleyber Torres, both coming to Seattle for many years to come. We did fortunately get a nice bump in our budget to tied for 15th in baseball a few weeks ago, which certainly helped us with the financial situation for this upcoming season and hopefully for many years to come. So the big free agents are off the market, and as I noted, we've added two of them. At this point, we've also added a very interesting international amateur free agent in Jesus Ayala, who we thought was one of the top guys out there. We spent every penny that we had to spend on him, made him a big offer when the IAFA period started just a few days ago, and he decided to sign with us, which was also positive for our farm system, because clearly having someone who is viewed as one of the top prospects in all of baseball should be a good thing for us. Thinking more near term with the farm system, Harry Ford and Cole Young are the top two prospects who are actually playing ball within our organization at this point. Both will likely be in AAA this upcoming year, and we have had the two of them at our development lab with 6 major leaguers this offseason. In the next 4 or 5 weeks, we should hear back on all of those reports. Right now, things not going horribly. Got a number of people on track or excelling. Only Cole Young has been frustrated with his plate discipline, and Matt Brash has been frustrated with his endurance training. But feeling like we might have a pretty decent success rate in the player development lab this offseason. Would love it if half of these programs end up being successful, and we should be finding that out in late February, right about the time that spring training is beginning. One other important note, George Kirby recovering from elbow ligament reconstruction surgery. The rehab is going better than expected, so he's only 2 months away at this point, so we may actually have him back for the last week or so of spring training. Don't know that he'll be quite ready to start the season on the major league roster, but it's not inconceivable that we could have him back at May 1st, which is probably a lot earlier than we were anticipating. He'd be back just a couple of months ago. So the rehab there is going well. And if he is what he was before that surgery, and we have him atop the rotation along with Luis Castillo and Logan Gilbert, really going to like our pitching. And with the additions, as I talked about, of Torres and Juan Soto into an offense that already includes reigning AL MVP Julio Rodriguez, Paul Goldschmidt, and others, feel like we should be able to score some more runs this year as well. So we were the AL West champions a year ago, although we got ousted in the playoffs by our divisional rivals in the wild card round, the Houston Astros, 2-0. The goal is certainly to get this team over 90 wins this year, back into the playoffs, and hopefully have multiple series that we are playing in October. And we made it to the start of spring training, just a couple days left in the development lab, and everyone at this point except for Matt Brash is either on track or excelling with their programs. We knew that that was going to be a difficult one, but given that Brash kind of has the arsenal to be a pretty interesting starter, we were hoping to potentially try to stretch out his stamina a bit. We'll find out in a couple of days what happened there, but excited to get this spring training going. Ultimately, we'll figure out what our 26-man roster is going to be that we head north to Seattle with. And we've got big expectations for this season. As I said, we won 88 games a year ago, and we've added Juan Soto and Gleyber Torres into the mix, and we're also going to hopefully have Mr. Kirby for more than one inning this year. So those are three pretty significant additions to what was already a pretty solid team a year ago. And we put 8 players through the 8 development lab spots that we play with this year, and can't really ask for much more than we did. Only one that was no improvement. That was Matt Brash with that endurance training program. We knew it was going to be a struggle. That was considered a very hard program for him as of the beginning of the offseason, and there was never really any time where I felt very confident that he would be successful. But the other 7 programs, excellent results. 5 were successful and 2 were outstanding. So J-Rod with plate discipline, Andres Munoz, an outstanding result in terms of proving his control. So the young closer, I think that would hopefully be a big impact for him. We can't actually see it in his numbers right yet with the 5-point scale that we're on from 20 to 80. But it sounds like he still made some progress there. Santos successful in his improve control. Logan Gilbert, secondary pitch he worked on. So he was working on his slider throughout the off-season, and you can see that slider is now as good as his first pitch, his fastball. So he made some progress there, coming off of a year when he led the American League in pitcher WAR. So that's positive. Brian Wu, an outstanding result on his pitch movement. So that should be positive. Cole Young, the youngster, better plate discipline. And Harry Young, another youngster, better quality of contact. So, as I said, 7 of 8 programs being either successful or outstanding is, to me, a pretty darn good result. So very pleased with the improvements that we made. And everyone except Brash made some progress. So looking forward to seeing if we see anything better in terms of the performance on the field of the 5 major leaguers besides Brash, who did show some improvements with their development lab programs over this busy offseason for the Seattle Mariners. And looking at the scouting reports to hopefully see some of the improvements, Harry Ford, who was working on better contact, you can see we think he improved from 50 to 55 there. He's reached his potential in that area at this point. Cole Young was focused on plate discipline, and looking at his scouting report, still see him having that 70 potential, but he potentially had a 10-point jump in his batting eye, so should be able to generate a lot more walks going forward. Byron Wu on the movement. Don't really see that in the scouting report quite yet, but I trust that it's there, especially because he had an outstanding result. Might have went from 48 to 52 or something, so we're not really seeing it. Logan Gilbert, we already saw that his slider is as good as his fastball right now. Gregory Santos on the control program. And you can see he kind of got the last 5 points of potential that we thought he had there. So that should make him more effective this year. Munoz, don't see it in the numbers, but I trust it's there. Brash, we know, no improvement. And then J-Rod with his plate discipline. And we can see that he's got a little more potential there than we thought he might have had before, which hopefully he'll be able to realize given that he's still relatively young. Although, as I noted earlier, he is coming out of the first of what we hope will be multiple MVP awards in his career. And with both Kirby and Kowar supposedly about 3 weeks away from being able to return, just suffered our first major injury of the spring. Taylor Saucedo, acute elbow soreness, certainly doesn't sound like a great diagnosis for a soon-to-be 32-year-old left-handed pitcher. He's going to be out for a couple of months. He's an important left-handed arm out of our bullpen, so that injury likely will give somebody who probably wasn't going to make the 26-man roster an opportunity to get some major league experience. And we've made it to the end of spring training. The team is generally healthy. Saucedo is going to be out for 7 weeks. We did have a couple of non-roster invitees who we had signed to minor league contracts, veteran players, Nick Ahmed and Trace Thompson, who both suffered some injuries, so we've sent them both down to the minors. Maybe one or both of them will help us down the line if we have some injuries this season, but they're really just organizational depth. Because of the real-life 2024 start in Korea, we've kind of got the goofy week and a half delay between spring training and the beginning of the regular season. And then we also have the goofy default series that have us now running series throughout the season on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday instead of the traditional, for at least the 5 decades or so that I've been following baseball, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's just kind of dumb and annoying, and I know that there will be the OOTP stands on the message boards anytime someone brings something like this up that say, just go into your settings and change it. But quite honestly, the default coming up with something as stupid as this is something that you would think the developers would probably just change. It's a nitpicky point. You're still going to play 162 games. You're still going to play the same teams. But it is just kind of disconcerting to have a schedule where the Fridays and the Tuesdays are the frequent off days as opposed to the Mondays and Thursdays that have been the traditional off days in baseball for as long as I can remember. I mean, quite honestly, I think it would be best if the game was just set up so after 2024, just kind of skipped over those 2 games that take place perhaps a week and a half before everything else, and have everyone start the season at a more normal point. And I probably can ultimately go in and change those settings, but it is just kind of weak that it doesn't just default to something logical and traditional, rather than just assuming that the start this year in Korea is something that is traditional and needs to be part of baseball for eternity going forward in this fictional universe that I'm creating. And we've decided on the 13 pitchers that are going to be coming north with us. A few surprises with the injury to Saucedo, as well as the fact that Kowar and Kirby are close to beginning rehab assignments, but not quite there yet. So in the rotation, Castillo, Gilbert, Wu, and Miller, all holdovers from a year ago. With the fact that we had moved on from Blackburn this offseason, we are going to give Matt Brash an opportunity to be our 5th starter at the start of the year. He'll likely be moving back to the bullpen when Kirby is ready, hopefully in a month or so, but might as well see exactly what we can get out of him. The first 4 names out of our bullpen are all very familiar. Andres Munoz, our closer last year, Santos and Adam and Spire are all holdovers from a year ago. But there are 4 new additions to the roster, some of whom may not be here all that long, with the fact that we do have some injured guys who will be hopefully coming to help us soon. But Nick Enright and the left-hander Bennett Souza, both of whom we picked in the Rule 5 draft, made the team. And then Domingo Herman and Tyler Wells, both of whom we signed to minor league contracts over the winter also make the team as well. Certainly, I think helping the bullpen is something we'll still be looking to do as we move through the season and get closer to the trade deadline. As I mentioned, Brash will probably, hopefully, be moving back to the bullpen once Kirby is back, assuming everyone else is healthy. That'll strengthen things. And then once Saucedo is back, certainly Souza's spot could be in jeopardy, although it wouldn't be the worst thing to have 3 lefties in the pen, given that our whole rotation is right-handers. So probably going to be looking to make some changes down the line. But as you can see from the spring training statistics of most of our pitchers, with the exception of Bryce Miller and his admittedly small 13-inning pitch sample size, and all of these sample sizes are relatively small, but the highest ERA of anybody outside of Bryce Miller, who made our team, is the 3.38 from Gabe Spire. So the team was pitching very well in the spring this year. And we've got a trade that we're going to execute on as we try to get our position players down to 13 as well. You may remember from the start of the offseason that we had problems with a couple of guys named Mitch, bad contracts. We ended up trading away Mitch Haniger after he opted into the final year of his contract. We had to retain 35% of that. Mitch Garver, with the fact that we made the trade for catcher Christian Vasquez and ultimately brought back Paul Goldschmidt after he opted into his qualifying offer, really did not have a role for us. And as we look at our roster, given that we're viewing this as a win-now team, he's not one of the 13 best players to break camp with on our roster. So we are going to deal him. We tried originally keeping 90% of his contract, and the only offer out there was Matt Carpenter, who was just signed as a free agent by the Nationals, as a minor league free agent with a major league option less than a month ago. But it was a start, and adding in a few useful players, were able to only have to retain 45% of Garver's contract for the next 2 years. At this point, just kind of viewing it as a sunk cost. I'd rather be paying 45% of his contract than 100% of his contract, given that he's not really good enough to be on our team. And even though he was kind of our third emergency catcher, he's not really going to be critical in that role, because the top prospect in our organization, Harry Ford, is going to be starting this year in AAA. And with just 1 year on Vasquez's contract, Ford is likely to be a major league catcher for us by September, and then next year likely pushing Cal Raleigh for starting time. So if we do have an injury to either Raleigh or Vasquez, we've got Ford along with some veterans that we signed down in AAA, who are better defensively than Garver, so I just don't see him having a big role for us. We have to include Victor Robles. He's a minor league free agent signing from a couple of months ago for us. Excellent defensive outfielder, but he was going to be in AAA for us anyways, so that's not a big loss. Miguel Aparicio, minor league free agent signing from just about a year ago at this point, spent the year in AA for us. He's just organizational depth. We're trading him away on his 26th birthday. And then Ben Williamson is not a horrible prospect, but also not really a big part of our future. He's 24 years old. He was going to be in AA this year, most likely. Really like his glove, but his bat doesn't look like it's going to be quite major league level. Don't like the low work ethic. That likely limits the chance that he'll even reach what we think his full potential is. So not getting rid of anyone who's game-breaking, and we will get the majority of Garver's contract off of our books, and importantly open up a 26-man roster spot for a player who is better than Garver. So We are going to go ahead and complete this trade with the Nationals, say goodbye to Garver. And we've still got one more cut to make to get down to 26. And after we traded away Mitch Garver, it came down to 3 players that were potentially the final cut for 2 spots. And we're going to keep a couple of outfielders, 27-year-old Dominic Canzone and 29-year-old Corey Julks, who you remember we picked up in a trade over the offseason. Addison Barger is going to be the odd man out. Like him, he's a guy that we picked up in the Rule 5 draft, thought he had a chance at making the team, but ultimately becomes a numbers game, as it often does, and we are going to release him back to the Blue Jays. So Cal Raleigh and Christian Vasquez will be our platoon at catcher, both excellent defensively. Raleigh will play against righties, Vasquez against lefties. Paul Goldschmidt going to be our everyday DH. You can see he's going to bat 9th against righties, but he's going to be right in the middle of the order, hitting 5th against lefties. Nick Allen will be our starting shortstop against lefties. Dylan Moore is going to play first base against lefties. Gleyber Torres, the new addition, our starting third baseman. He's going to be batting 5th against righties, 2nd against lefties. J.P. Crawford, with his defense in the lineup every day, he's going to be our shortstop against righties, and he's going to play second base against lefties. Nick Gordon, new addition to the team, is going to be our leadoff hitter and second baseman against right-handed pitching. Corey Julks is going to be in a platoon with Seth Brown in left field. Juan Soto will be our everyday right fielder. Julio Rodriguez, our everyday center fielder. And then actually, Julks is going to be in a platoon with Seth Brown in left field. I misspoke. Canzone's actually going to play first base for us against right-handed pitching. So everyone on the 26-man roster who's an everyday player is going to be in the starting lineup against lefties and or righties. So we've got a lot of platoon situations go, mixing and matching at some defensive positions. Feel like we are really strong up the middle at catcher, second base, shortstop, and center field. Our corner outfield defense, not perfect with Juan Soto out there, but with the fact that Goldschmidt at this point is pretty miserable defensively, really going to have him be our everyday designated hitter this year. I think it's conceivable that next year Soto could be moving into a first base and or DH kind of role. But with his good arm, still think he's probably the best choice for us in right field because neither Seth Brown nor Corey Julks, who are going to be playing left field for us, is a defensive dynamo either. Do think that Gleyber at third base will be solid there, and first base with Canzone and Dylan Moore should be fine. But our hope is that J-Rod, coming off of that MVP season, may ultimately give us some close to Gold Glove quality defense in center field and perhaps make up for some of the limitations of his counterparts on his left and right side in the outfield. And we've made it to opening day. Looks like the Padres are once again involved in the special games on the opening day schedule. They're going to be playing against the Rockies. John Stanton expects us to make the playoffs as a minimum. That is certainly our expectation at a minimum after winning the AL West a year ago. Top 100 prospects list has been published, in Jesus Ayala, the exceptional-looking international amateur free agent that we signed a couple of months ago, is considered to be the top prospect in baseball. Only 16 years old, so we are going to keep him at our complex this year, even looking at his ratings relative to the Dominican Rookie League. I mean, he probably could hold his own, but 16 is definitely young. We'll wait and bring him up as a 17-year-old next year. Could possibly get him involved in the development lab over this coming off season. Given that he's actually closer than he was when I looked a week or two ago in terms of his rankings. He's not really that far off. I guess there is an argument to just get him moving. So we'll reconsider that and maybe think about putting him in the DSL, even though he's only 16 years old. But clearly having brought the number one prospect on board there helps our minor league system, which you can see is now ranked 5th overall, largely driven by Ayala, although both Harry Ford and Cole Young, who, as we talked about, had those successful trips to the development lab this offseason certainly helped their development. I believe they were both kind of in the 40s, 40, 50 kind of range a year ago when we started this playthrough. So good to see some development there, and would expect that we'll see both of those players at the major league level in September, if not earlier than that. Taking a look at the preseason predictions, Orioles expected to win 95 games, be the best team in the American League. Over in the National League, the Braves with 99 wins are expected to be the best. 85 wins projected for our Mariners, which would put us in a 3-way tie for the final 2 wildcard spots in the American League. That would be 3 wins worse than we were a year ago. Clearly, with the additions of Soto and Torres and the potential return from Kirby, that would be disappointing to be worse than we were a year ago. Other than the Astros and our Mariners swapping first and second place compared to last year, everything else is the way it was a year ago, with the Rangers, Angels, and A's projected to be 3rd, 4th, and 5th respectively. Taking a look at some of the top hitters, not surprisingly, Rodriguez, who was the AL MVP for our Mariners a year ago, expected to have another big season, and Juan Soto, who was the runner-up while playing for the Yankees in the MVP voting, expected to have a big year in his first season in Seattle. Pitching-wise, Luis Castillo expected to have another good year, 15-11 with a 3.74 ERA. And we are also at a point now where we just started Kowar on his rehab assignment. Kirby is ready as well. So we are going to send Kirby on a rehab assignment to AAA as well. And we'll be scouting these two aggressively. Our hopes is that Kirby kind of looks the way he always has, and we can probably get 25 starts out of him this year as he comes back from that elbow surgery. Our owner still wants us to sign him to a long-term extension, so certainly seeing what he looks like in these early stages of his rehab assignment and getting an updated scouting report on him is going to be a very important tool of ours. So with the increase to our budget that happened when the preseason got underway, and the fact that we have gotten out of a good chunk of the contracts from each of the Mitches this year, and Mitch, the catcher, next year, we were able to actually increase scouting and player development a bit from a year ago, despite those big signings of Soto and Torres. And we've still got some money available to bring on some contracts as we try to compete. Also conceivably may look to up our ticket prices. We're selling a ton more season tickets this year and expected to just about be selling out. So we could put ourselves in a nice position to generate a lot more revenue this year if the team is as successful on the field as we think it could be, which probably bodes well for us making some money for ownership and maybe even getting another bump in the budget this coming off season. But we've got a lot of work to do before the off season begins. Hopefully our Mariners can get off to a big start, and that 85 win projection can prove to be woefully inadequate, because I don't think anything under 90 is going to be acceptable for these Mariners, and certainly don't expect us to be battling for a wild card spot in the final days of the season. Would hope that we've got a playoff spot wrapped up by mid-September, and perhaps the only thing we're battling for in the late stages of September will be the division title and possibly even the best record in the AL. And we'll find out how we do in the early stages of the season in our next episode. Until then, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.